So there's been a lot of controversy in the Maha sector inside the U.S. government and out in the private sector. And we have one of the guys at the center of that controversy, Peter Gillooly, the CEO of the wellness company. Thanks for joining us, Peter. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me back, Todd.
So what happened? What's going on with RFK's advisor, Calley Means?
It's been a whirlwind of a week, Todd. So last week, I'm sure many of the audience saw that Calley Means, who is serving currently as a special government employee advisor to Secretary Kennedy, also CEO of a company called TrueMed, his sister, Dr. Casey Means, was nominated for Surgeon General. It was reported widely on social media that Dr. Kelly Victory, who I know you have met and is on my chief medical board, was also under consideration for the Surgeon General position. There was a lot of, I think, backlash and some controversy to having, an employee's sister and someone that is, as relatively young as Casey Means, who'd be the first, Surgeon General under 45 ever, and in fact, she's not even 40 yet. Serving the government. So there was a lot of back and forth about this. Some larger journalists like Laura Loomer caught up in the story and got into it with Calley Means, who was defending his sister's track record. Fast forward to Saturday morning. I'm walking my dog. I get a frantic call from Dr. Drew Pinsky, who said, "Hey, Calley's on the phone and he really wants to talk to you. He's quite upset." So I said, "Okay, well, give him my number, have him give me a call." I take a call from Calley, and he proceeds to be hysterical for about 15 minutes about how the wellness company is, in his words, allegedly orchestrating a smear campaign against him and his sister because presumably Dr. Victory did not get the nomination. Couldn't be further from the truth. And in fact, the people who he mentioned, these influencers like Laura Loomer, I've never met, nobody from the wellness company has ever met these people before, never mind spoken to them about the matter. And Mr. Means went on to, threaten to bring Secretary Kennedy and Jay Bhattacharya, who's the director of the NIH, to make our lives very difficult. He made numerous threats to sue us into oblivion, again, for what I'm not exactly sure to this point, and he had a very difficult time articulating precisely what it was, other than some sort of background smear campaign. Then he also made a bizarre overture to what I would kind of classify as extortion, to tell me that it might be a good idea if the wellness company partnered with TrueMed on payment processing for health and wellness products, which is what TrueMed provides. So, I was frankly, Todd, quite stunned by that whole ordeal. It's not the phone call that I expected to receive on a Saturday morning, certainly. I captured the call. I debated with my team about what action should or should not be taken. And we decided that we had an obligation to file an ethics complaint with Washington for this behavior. Because, frankly, we might expect this thing under the Biden administration. It's the kind of stuff that Hunter was widely reported doing, but not under the Trump administration. I'm sure if President Trump or Secretary Kennedy knew about this behavior, they would not tolerate it for a moment.
So was there a reaction from the Trump administration to the public, issue that happened?
Not outwardly facing. So I filed complaints with 4 separate agencies: Office of Special Counsel, Office of the Inspector General, Civil Rights, and FTC. They've acknowledged the complaints have been filed, and I also included a full transcript of the conversation. And I told them I would happily and publicly cooperate with any investigation that they feel is necessary. But let's be clear: this man's a special government employee, Todd. Yeah. He's working for the government. He's an employee of the federal government. He works for you and I. He has no business commingling his private enterprise with his government position, and he has no business using his government position to threaten someone who he perceives as a competitor into taking specific business actions. And that's really what this is about. I think he said the quiet part out loud and lost his temper, and we really need to push back against this sort of behavior.
Oh, for sure. Keep us updated as to what happens there. But while I've got you, because really I wanted to talk to you about that, but while I've got you, the whole parasite cleanse thing has been a huge, bump in products and interest in the web as far as what's happening with healthcare. You guys are re-engineering that, but that seems to be a focus of the wellness company. Tell us about the product that you put out on that.
Yeah, it's been kind of an amazing wave of momentum, Todd, and we, frankly speaking, didn't expect this. So,
Hmm.
as we all kind of discovered during COVID, repurposed drugs have, great utility within modern society. We probably don't need all of this new drug innovation that we see on
Yeah.
TV and commercials with the people dancing, right? And then the list of 30 side effects, where we have things like ivermectin and bendazole, which have been used safely for over 100 years.
Hmm.
Ivermectin's won a Nobel Prize. Mebendazole was single-handedly credited with curing pinworm in the U.S. South.
Hmm.
These drugs are very safe. They've been shown to be repurposed for many things, such as COVID, which there's been research on, such as cancer, which there's been research on. And we really thought that we could combine the two and really solve a problem that many Americans face and few recognize, which is parasites. Something like 1 in 5, 1 in 6 Americans have some sort of parasite in their system. You might say that, oh, parasites are a problem that's only common to third world countries. No, it's
Hmm.
surprisingly common in the US, and it manifests itself in many symptoms like lethargy and brain fog and all these other things that we kind of end up trying to live with on a day to day basis, but don't have to. And if you have a dog, if you have a pet, if you wear shoes in the house, you could be tracking in bugs that, can eventually cause you harm over time. And it makes
Hmm.
sense, I think, for everybody at, pretty regular intervals to do some sort of cleanse. It has
Hmm.
no real negative health effects and only upside.
So you mentioned some of the symptoms, but give us the typical person who may need to look at this. I mean, what kind of things would you be experiencing that may be an indication you may have some of this stuff?
Yeah, parasites can manifest themselves in a variety of ways. It affects
Hmm.
appetite. It
Hmm.
often causes people to overeat, especially because the body is
Hmm.
needs to intake more food to get the same amount of metabolism. Because you have these parasites that leach that energy from your system. It manifests itself, like I said earlier, in brain fog and
Hmm.
lethargy. It causes
Hmm.
people to feel more tired again because parasites act as a drain on our bodily functions. And I think those are really the things that a lot of people sort of normalize. To my point, Todd, which
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy. You think about these conditions, like you shouldn't have to live like this, and it's not normal.
Very interesting. So, what is the wellness company doing for that? I mean, what do you offer in that space?
Yeah, we come up with a proprietary blend of ivermectin and mebendazole, the two drugs that I referenced
Hmm.
earlier.
Hmm.
Mebendazole is actually very hard to come by. We were fortunate enough to import over half a ton of mebendazole um, couple months ago, right before the tariffs took into effect.
Tariffs
So
came in. Yeah.
we dodged a bullet with that one.
Sure.
But we compound them in our 50 state licensed pharmacy here in Florida. The drugs are all prescribed by one of our 50 state licensed doctors, and it's really led to some spectacular results.
Talking about re-engineering a lot of healthcare, you mentioned drugs that are repurposed. What else is the wellness company doing? I mean, you have some subscriptions that give, and I'm not sure of all of it, that essentially take some of the pricing out of the drugs that people may use on a regular basis. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, we have a lot of things going on,
Yeah.
Todd.
Hmm.
I think you mentioned kind of our membership program, which
Hmm.
is really meant for people who are already on a supplement regime or medication
Hmm.
regime, and they just want to be able to save money. It allows
Hmm.
you to save 15% off site wide every single day.
Hmm.
The other big area that we've been very successful in this spring is rethinking weight loss. So
Hmm.
everybody kind of over the past year has gone nuts with these weight loss injections. It's quite kind of bad for you, and you've probably seen the headlines about
Yeah.
the downsides of things like Ozempic and semaglutide, right? The real issue here is that you have users that are injecting high dosage of this medicine into their abdomen once a week. You get a giant spike in active ingredients, and then it kind of tails off over the week. You
Hmm.
experience effects like nausea and vomiting. It can be quite unpleasant, and it can lead to uh, gut motility and
Hmm.
some of these other Ozempic face, which you've heard of, which is due to kind of muscle wasting because you're not getting
Hmm.
enough calories. So we're rethinking weight loss. One way we've done it is we've actually developed a proprietary oral version of semaglutide. We have it in a
Hmm.
spray. It comes in a bottle. It's an appetite suppressant. So you get
Hmm.
hungry in the middle of the afternoon, rather than going and getting that frappuccino, you squirt it in your mouth. It'll relieve your hunger for 2 to 3 hours.
Interesting.
right? So it really gives you a new way to experience some of these tools that can help you lose weight without really the drastic side effects that you get from things like injections, which are really the more dangerous route for many people.
Staying on drugs, President Trump has signed an executive order allegedly will reduce prescription prices. Do you see that being effective? I mean, there's a lot of voices on either side of that issue. How do you see that playing out?
Fundamentally, Todd, this is an insurance question, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people just say, "Oh, President Trump is unilaterally lowering drug prices." I wish that were the case,
Mm-hmm.
but that might have been true if this was Stalin's Russia, but this is the
Mm-hmm.
United States of America. So
Mm-hmm.
the way that we can manipulate prices is through Medicare, which drives most of the drug purchases in the US. And we're talking about drugs that are typically prescribed for chronic conditions, things like statins, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, blood pressure medications, hypertension. So while Trump can start mandating the way that the government is reimbursing for those drugs, which saves the government money, and that
Mm-hmm.
can be hopefully passed on to the consumer, which is the goal. At the end of the day, cash pay for drugs has always been radically cheaper than going through insurance because you cut out 20 different middlemen along the way who get their cut.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what Trump is trying to do is for consumers that are not relying on cash pay medications, he is trying to cut out middlemen, which is a
Yeah,
good thing.
it is a good thing. Um, what about politically? How are you being received in DC? Because you're upsetting some apple carts in the medical community. I mean, what's the political reaction from both sides of the aisle that the wellness company is experiencing?
Well, by and large, I think on the right side of the aisle, it's
Mm-hmm.
been overwhelmingly positive.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I mentioned the incident we had with Calley Means last week,
Mm-hmm.
and I expect this to be resolved very
Mm-hmm.
quickly. But look, Maha is here to stay. And I
Yeah.
think both Democrats and Republicans are kind of agreeing on that fact. We saw from the COVID pandemic that people are just mistrustful of doctors and the
Yeah.
medical establishment. They are actively seeking alternatives, things that they were told for their whole lives, Todd, that are snake oil or woo woo, functional
Mm-hmm.
medicine, chiropractic care, all of these things which actually do have a lot of data and backing, but just aren't mainstream.
Yeah.
Supplementation. So we've seen a big wave of people being curious about these solutions and honestly, people trying it and having great results. So I'm really positive that we're going to see a continued growth in this area. I think the wellness company is going to be one of many companies that stands to be a potential solution provider in this space. And I'm really excited to see what the next few years hold for the US.
Peter, thank you for your time. I really wanted to talk to you about the Casey Means thing, but as that develops, we'll stay on top of it and maybe have you back if there's a development in that space. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Todd.
All right, take care. Bye.